welcome back to my channel. I wanted to go ahead and film my birth story for you guys. I get a lot of questions about it because I did an all-natural birth. This is something that I regret not doing with my first son, who I had at 16. He's now 11 years old. That's my first son, Sean. And I didn't do a lot of things right with him. Like, I was so young, I just did whatever people told me because I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what to use, who to listen to. So this birth story is pertaining to my second child, Cash. He is going to be 9 months old in a week. If you're new to my channel, I do have my two kids, Sean and Cash, and my fiance, Brendan. So I want to go ahead and get right into it because we're going to be here for a minute. Hope everybody's got some coffee or water or tea, whatever you guys like to drink. Made a birth plan. I made like 5 copies of them, and when I arrived I was like, take my birth plan, this is how it's gonna go. Like, I made sure every nurse and the person that took me in had one of these. So says up here, birth plan, and then mother Ashley Bryant, father Brendan Sexton, and then it's like categorized. No oxytocin injection after delivery unless there is heavy bleeding, which I did have heavy bleeding, so unfortunately I had to get that. But they told me that they give it to every single mother that gives birth before they even know if it's required or not. I was like, no, I'm not gonna get a shot unless I know I need it. And then for baby, hold baby skin to skin immediately, which they did. As soon as he came out, he was placed right on my chest and he started breastfeeding, and he did not move from me for an hour. So that is the birth plan I had typed up and gave to everybody. So I highly suggest to get everything you know that you want out on paper, so that one, when you're like a hot mess, having these contractions in so much pain, you don't forget, and 2, so you don't let people just tell you what to do because it's in the moment, and 3, so everybody knows the plan. Like, I went over it with my midwife as well. And speaking of midwife, that's the thing I wanted to tell you guys. I actually did get a midwife. I thought about doing an at-home birth, but my home situation wasn't the best. I lived in a trailer and it was kind of falling apart, and I just didn't want to have that experience in that home because it also was the place that I lived in with my first son's dad a long time ago. I just didn't want to have my son there, so I did it at the hospital. But I did want the midwife because I wanted to have a potential water birth at the hospital. And then I had a doula at the birth. And oh my gosh, I'm so thankful for the both of them. It made this experience so much easier. If you're thinking about having a natural birth, I highly recommend having a doula. The doula, it was like she cared about me, and like we knew each other because she was just so nice and sweet and just kept me comforted. She was better to have than my fiance. So I highly suggest one of those, especially if you don't have a lot of support system. I had my fiance, and then his stepmom actually videotaped the birth for me, but like for like actual support, the doula was amazing because I didn't have like a friend to be there to help me out, or a sister or anything like that. So highly recommend a doula. So I'll go ahead and get into how and when I went into labor. So it was completely unexpected, like it always is, right? My son Sean and my fiance Brendan, we were watching the new Dumbo movie. It's not really new anymore, but like the real life Dumbo. And I want to say we're like halfway through it, and I started getting like period cramps, and I was like, oh, I didn't think anything of it. And I had hot chocolate. Like, we had hot chocolate with marshmallows and stuff. It was like November, so it was cold. And we all sat down, we had hot chocolate with marshmallows, and we're watching Dumbo, and I swear the hot chocolate helped put me into labor. But anyway, so I started getting cramps, and I'm like, this is strange. And I started cramping up the entire movie. Well, towards the end of the movie, the cramps started getting worse, and they started getting closer together. So I looked at my fiance, I'm like, I think I'm going into labor. Like, these are pretty intense cramps, and why do they keep coming and going? Like, I'm pretty sure those are contractions. So I started timing them, and at first they were 7 minutes apart for a long time. And then they were 5 minutes apart, and they stayed 5 minutes apart for, I want to say, 2 hours. So what we ended up doing is, after the movie was over, I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna try and go to bed, and maybe by morning I'll be going into stronger labor, because it was just a steady like 7 minutes apart contractions. Like it didn't get any worse than that for like 2 or 3 hours. So I was like, we're just gonna go to sleep. And as soon as I laid down to go to bed, I wanna say 20 minutes later, they started getting so extreme, like not like terrible, but they started getting so much worse that I couldn't fall asleep. There would have been no way I could have fallen asleep because it was painful. Like it's not the kind of pain you could just sleep through. So I just sat there for a while, kept getting them, kept going through it because I was like determined to just fall asleep. And I stood up, I'm like, okay, I told my fiance, like 30 minutes before this, I told him, I said, why don't you go out in the living room and get some sleep, because you're not gonna, there's no way he would have been able to sleep with me because I kept tossing and turning and making noises. So he went out into the living room and started to sleep. I was like, you know what, I can't sleep. So I stood up, I got up and I went and I got in the hot shower, and I let the shower beat on my back, and then all of a sudden they started to get like 5 minutes apart, the contractions, and they were starting to get like, I want to say ×5 worse than what they were. So I get out of the shower, I go to get dressed, and all of a sudden this huge contraction hit me, and I like went to my knees, and I'm sitting there rocking back and forth, like breathing, and I'm like, okay, maybe I should tell Brennan it's time to go to the hospital. And I was trying not to wake him up. At this moment, it was like, I feel like it was like midnight, 11, midnight, something like that. And so I was down on my knees, and when I went to stand back up to go tell him, my water broke. And I didn't know it was my water at first. I looked down, I'm like, I think my water just broke. And so I was like, babe, I screamed. I was like, my water just broke. He freaks out. He like pops up, starts running in. He goes, what do I do? What do I do? He's like, do you want to go to the hospital? And I was like, I mean, the contractions went back to like what they were when I was in the shower. So I was like, I think we have a little bit of time. He's like, can I go to the party store and to get like drinks and stuff? So we had stuff when we went. And I was like, yeah, you have time to do that. So he left, and then 5 minutes after he left, the contractions got so much worse. And he gets back, and I'm like, we gotta go now. So we wake up Sean, we get in the car, and we start driving to the hospital, and we had to drive 30 minutes away because my hospital was in Ann Arbor, and I lived in Brighton at the time. And Sean's in the back seat, half alive because he was sleeping for a while. And I'm in the passenger side, like grabbing the handle and just screaming. And like, when you pull up, for some reason, it helps the contractions, like it makes them less painful. And it took a lot of pressure off down there. So when I got a contraction, I would just yank on that really hard and like pull myself up, and it would help. But let me tell you, having contractions that extreme in the car was not fun. And being in motion and not being able to move around and into different positions and stuff to help the pain was so terrible. So the car was like one of the worst parts. And it just, the only thing I can describe how bad the pain was like someone was like twisting an organ inside of me. And one of the worst parts about it is that you knew it was coming again. Like it only lasts for 30 seconds, but it feels so much longer. And then the time between each contraction is like 2 minutes, like 5 to 2 minutes, like depending on where you are. And it's like, you know it's coming again and you expect it. So you're just like scared the whole time. Like, when's it coming again? I don't want it to come again. So we finally got to the hospital, and he's like, should I get a wheelchair? And I was like, no, I can walk. Well, we make it to the hospital doors, and I almost collapse on the floor because I get this huge contraction. They get a wheelchair for me. I get in the wheelchair, and then all of a sudden they're just like magnified. I'm screaming. Like I literally, when I got one of the contractions, I would be grabbing the wheelchair arms, and I was just screaming because it was that painful. So we get into like what they call the pre-room, where you are seen to see how much dilated you are before you go into like your room where you'll deliver. And they get me in there, they get me out of my clothes and into one of the robes, and I'm in so much pain. Like the contractions are that bad where I could barely stand up, and I kept screaming when each contraction came, so that all the nurses were like freaked out. They like looked at each other and they're like, I think we need to get her into the delivery room like right now. So I didn't even stay in that room. They didn't do anything with me in that room. They immediately put me back in the chair and took me to the delivery room, where I got taped up to everything. I needed the IV and all that. And they checked me. and I was only dilated to 6 centimeters, and it felt like I was at 10 ready to push. It was that painful. I was in shock that I was only dilated 6 centimeters. I couldn't believe it. Like, I thought that they were messing with me. I was like, there's no way. This is so painful. I was like, if this is only 6, I don't even want to know what it's going to feel like at 10. So I get on this ball, this birthing ball, like I mentioned in my birthing plan, and I'm on my knees and I'm just kind of rocking on it. And the pain is so bad. That ball wasn't doing anything. Nothing was doing anything to help me. So I got into the tub, and they had like a shower part in the tub, and I had the shower on, running on my back, and then I was on my hands and knees in the tub, like moving back and forth like this with the water beating on me. And once I got in the tub, it helped so much. And then my doula came, and she was helping me with positions, different positions to be in, different breathing techniques. She would rub my back, rub my lower back, and one of the big reasons why my contractions were so bad is because it was in my back. Like, every time I got a contraction, it felt like someone was stabbing me in the spine, in the lower spine, like right above your butt, and it hurt so bad. I can't even explain. Like, that's the best way I can explain it. If someone took a tire iron and stabbed it into your back and twisted it, that's what it felt like every time I got a contraction. And I was in tears a lot. I was screaming a lot. And when I say screaming, I was literally screaming. My son said he could hear me in the waiting room, which was a couple halls down from my room. And he said he heard me screaming. And it kind of hurts just talking about it. So I was in the tub for my entire labor, going through the contractions until I was dilated to a 9. And the last time they checked to see how much I was dilated, when the nurse put her fingers in there to check, I got the strongest, most terrible contraction ever, and I just let out this huge, ear-piercing scream. It was so painful. It felt like when she did that, it like magnified the pain. And the only thing, like I said, that was helping me was the water and being on my hands and knees. Well, I get out of the tub because I decided I didn't want to have a water birth. I was like, it doesn't feel right. I want out. I want on the bed. So I got out, and as soon as I got out, I got a huge contraction again, and they were getting so close together. They're at this point, I think they were like 30 seconds apart, and they're like, she's gonna have the baby on the floor. We got to get her to the bed right now. I get on the bed, I'm on my back, and I start pushing, and I stop. I was screaming in pain. I'm like, I can't do it. I can't push. My back hurts. I can't do it. And the whole time I was like, I can't do it. I can't do it. My back, it hurts my back. I feel like someone's stabbing me. The entire time I kept saying that. And then every time a contraction would come, I was like, no. Oh, here it comes. Like, it was like I was scared because I knew another contraction was coming. And I started pushing and on my back, and I just couldn't do it. So my midwife told me to get on my hands and knees. So I got on my hands and knees and I started pushing that way, and it helped my lower back pain. And I was pushing for about, I want to say 6 minutes before he was born. He was completely out and he was into the world. But let me tell you, the pushing was definitely the hardest part. I mean, I feel like the labor was because it was so long, but the pushing, I can't even describe the way it felt. For one, I'll start with like how I felt in my head. Pushing like that, it felt like there was blood vessels popping in my head. Like, I could feel that my face was beet red because I was pushing so hard. It felt like my head was gonna explode. So that was the first thing. The second thing, it felt like nothing was happening. Like, it felt like I was pushing, and every time I pushed, he would come out slowly and then get sucked back in when I stopped pushing. So I'm like, I can't do it. I can't do it. And so the nurses just, I had the doula up by my face, and she was super comforting. She held my hand and she's like, just breathe. And she would like keep my breath steady because I kept screaming and going, she's like, breathe. Deep breath in and out. And that helped a lot. And she was rubbing my back at the same time. And then I had my fiance holding my right hand, and I was squeezing his hand so hard, I'm surprised I didn't break his hand. And so every time I pushed, I felt that pressure in my head, and then it felt like down there, like somebody was taking their hands and just like ripping on me, like pulling my vagina apart. Like, that's the best way I can describe how that felt. And it felt like it was going nowhere, even though like when I went back and watched the video, it said it was 6 minutes from push to him coming out. It felt so much longer than that. And I remember screaming, "Get this baby out of me." And I'm like, "I can't do it." And I'm screaming, I'm crying. Well, they told me to push one big long push, and I started pushing. I was like, I just let out this huge, huge scream, laid my head down, and I was like, "I can't do it, I can't do it." And the doula came up, she's like, "You can do this, you got this, you're so strong." And she was just like my rock. I don't know what I would have done without her. And the very last push where he came out, it just felt like somebody ripped out my insides, and I could feel them slowly tumble out. That's the easiest way I can describe how that felt. And once he came out, he didn't even really scream, so it kind of freaked me out. But then the midwife was like, "It's fine, it's normal. It doesn't happen a lot, but sometimes they don't come out crying." And so I had to figure out how to get back onto my back so I could hold him and not like kick the umbilical cord. So I got back onto my back, and they put him on my chest, and it was the best feeling ever. Like I was just still so, what's the word, traumatized and like distraught and like out of it because of all that pain I just went through. But once they put him on my chest, like just something calmed me down. Like him on my chest just calmed me down instantly. And I just started crying tears of joy. Like I'm like, all this hard work, here's my beautiful baby. It was the best feeling ever. And then he was on me, and he barely cried. He only started crying when they like were wiping him off to get all this stuff off of him. And then I cut his umbilical cord, and they gave me a blanket for him, and they started showing me how to breastfeed. And he nursed for, I want to say, the entire hour that I wanted to do the skin to skin. And I'm so, so glad I did the skin to skin, and I didn't let them take him from me. So when they did end up weighing him, he weighed 8 pounds even, but like the next day he was 7 pounds, and the nurses told me that it was because he fed for so long before they weighed him. So he was technically born at 7 pounds and 20 inches. We named him Cash David Sexton, and it was amazing. Like doing it with the epidural and then doing it all natural, two completely different experiences. And I'm so, so, so glad I did it all natural, because it was a way better experience. It was more painful, yes, but it was such a better experience because I just knew what it felt like to just do it all natural. And it felt even better, made me more proud that I can say I did it all natural, because I don't know the statistics, but I'm pretty sure there's not a lot of people that do all natural births. So, and I plan on doing it with any other babies that I end up having. If I know I want one more, but if I have more than that, I'm going to do all natural every single time. And I'm just so, so thankful for my doula and my midwife. And another thing is, I had a lactation consultant come in, and they were very rough with him. Like they would like whip him around and shove him on my boob, and do not let them tell you what to do. Listen to their advice, but don't 100% listen to it. Stick with your gut and your beliefs, because she kept telling me, don't give him a binky because he won't be able to nurse. You have to do it this way. But she just kept and she was very stern and rude. So, and I actually spoke to 3 or 4 lactation consultants during my time in the hospital, because it was so hard to figure out how to breastfeed. Well, and I didn't give him a binky in the hospital. I didn't give him a binky for a while, and that is 100% why he would not take a binky, and I had to train him to take a binky. So please, 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 even if you're breastfeeding, introduce your baby to a binky. It's not gonna hurt them, because what ended up happening to me when I got home was he was using my boob for comfort and he wasn't hungry. So he's overeating and throwing up all the time. And I didn't know what was going on when he was throwing up all the time. And I found out from a lactation consultant later on that it was because he's using me as comfort and overeating, and that a binky would help. And he wouldn't take a binky because I didn't introduce it early on enough. So I had to train him, and that is one thing that I regret. I wish I would have given him a binky first day in the hospital. So if you're on the fence about whether or not to give your baby a binky, if you're gonna be nursing, if you don't know, give them the binky. Just give it to him. It'll give you relief, because a lot of the time in the hospital too, he was constantly on my boob, like every hour. So I didn't even get any sleep. And if I would have given him a binky, I guarantee he would have slept more through that night, because when the babies are first born, they sleep a lot more. Well, he didn't really ever sleep because he wanted that comfort. And if I would have given him a binky, he would have got that comfort. So please, please, please do not let them tell you not to give your baby a binky. And I'm so glad that I went with the breastfeeding. So much better being able to breastfeed. Like, I cannot even explain the bond that you create when you breastfeed. So I'm so, so, so happy that I breastfed this time around. Even though it was so hard and I struggled every day for the first 3 months, the difficultness will pass. But I tell you, it's the best experience ever to breastfeed your baby. And I'm so glad I made that decision. And I'm so glad I decided to do the natural birth. And I hope I didn't talk your guys' ears off too much. I just wanted to share my experience with you, because when I was pregnant, I was so scared. I knew the birth was coming and I didn't know what to expect, and it just made it that much scarier. So I hope that some moms-to-be see this and it helps you make, you know, good decisions and not let nurses or anybody bully you into anything or make you do anything you don't want to do. If you guys want to see more videos from me, go ahead and subscribe and hit the notification bell so you know when I make another video. And give this a thumbs up if it helped you at all. Leave comments down below if you have any questions or if you're curious about anything. I would love to answer any comments. And I hope everybody has a great day, and I will see you guys on my next video. Bye.
I can't get you out of my mind. It's like I feel it for the first time. Been thinking